Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. I'm your host, Tenya Eickenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. My name is Tenya, and with me I have, and I'm going to read it off because I've been practicing, Stefanos Koutsoumpis.
That's great. Thank you for
Perfect.
having me, Tenya.
Thank you. And we are going to talk about men's mental health. We talked a little bit before I hit record. I was like, wait, let's hold off on this conversation and we'll use it. We'll record it and we'll use it. But we started kind of talking about that humans need more focus on mental health. I know in my world, there's a lot of focus on mental health. I see it from all directions in all different ways. But I think the biggest thing is that women are more emotionally, not emotionally centered, but they come from more of an emotional state when dealing with their mental health. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen. Women are more apt to be louder about it in the sense that they're crying, yelling, screaming sometimes. Men, on the other hand, men become more quiet, don't they? Or
That's
do they
true.
yell? Do they get loud? I don't know.
That's true. That's true. That's true. You know, for certain, we're different, and there is a biological factor in that, and you can see it even in little babies. I mean, when you have a baby girl, she looks in her mother's eye and tries to imitate what her face is doing. So
Hmm.
she's learning to read emotions, and she's learning to read faces, and she's learning to empathize. And then on the other hand, you have a little boy, and he's looking at anything but his parents. He can look his toys, animals, things that are moving outside, but he's not looking at other people. So even at a very young age, it's not to his advantage. So this is partly of why, as we grow as men, we're not that good at reading emotions,
Hmm.
of others and of ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, this is not I mean, this isn't something that I can, because I had boy-girl twins. So if I had had this knowledge when they were born, how interesting it would have been to be able to notice those. I do know that my twin girl was more emotional, and my twin boy, and I need to stop saying it, but he was the easier one of the two because he was more laid back, more calm most of the time. But that also there's a whole lot of factors that go into all of that. But those were the two differences that really pop into my mind is our daughter was a little more vocal with her
Mm,
emotions, where our son was not.
mm. Also, there's another difference that girls tend to be more vocal, and they have a more developed uh, vocal center in their brains. They have a
Hmm.
bigger region in their brains that has to do with, with speaking, with language. So they tend to really feel more of their emotions, and they tend to vocalize them more. And then again, you have boys that they can't either really understand them that
Hmm.
well, and they're not that good with words. I mean, even if you go to teenagers and you take a teenage boy and a teenage girl, girls can express themselves much better with words.
Hmm.
And I have a funny story about this. And it will take an example to understand why men and women are different when it comes to emotions. I have a girlfriend, and she's also painting her nails like you do. And when we're discussing colors, there can be hundreds of different shades of colors, but it can be, I mean, like 20 different shades of red. And she knows that something is ivory, and something is rotten tomato, and something is strawberry, and something is something else. So she has a vocabulary for all these colors, but I don't. For me,
Mhm.
all these are just red. So we
Right.
can't have a discussion because we don't have a common language. And I think this comes also when we are speaking about emotions. Girls have more words for emotions. They can really describe how they are feeling,
Yeah.
and that brings some kinds of awareness. They know when they are upset.
Yeah.
For men,
Yeah.
this is not a thing, and a lot of men and a lot of my friends, and this is true for me as well, we're having a lot of trouble telling how we're feeling. I mean, am I hungry or am I upset? Am I upset or am I calm? Am I not speaking because I'm sad or because I'm resting? I can't always tell, and a lot of men can't always tell. And things are fine as well as you are feeling fine. But when you are upset and you can't really vocalize that, you don't have the tools and you don't have the awareness of what is going on. You don't have any information about what is happening. So you can't take any reasonable action there. You just wait.
Yeah. And and that comes from how we're raised, right? That because I mean, we can I mean, in this day and age, and I was just having this conversation with somebody else with this conscious parenting. Now it's just conscious uncoupling. But this conscious parenting where you're coming down to the child's level and you're talking in a calm voice, but you're clear, but you're giving you're showing that child how to have emotions. You're giving them instructions on how to have emotions. You and I were not raised that way. We
No,
were raised, excuse me, we were raised to like basically suck it up, buttercup. And because our parents didn't know how to show their emotions, how to process their emotions. And so as we have grown up, we've had to learn how to have emotions, how to and yes, women can articulate their emotions a little bit better because we're emotional beings. Whereas men, like you said, they don't have those emotional receptors to understand what they're feeling because they were never told. So how did you figure out, first of all, where how did that awareness come to you of like, I don't know what I'm feeling? Because a lot of men would just kind of shut that off and go, I don't need to know how I'm feeling. I just need to get shit done.
exactly. That's the winning spirit. There's I have read a lot of books on self-improvement, etc., and there is an instruction for discussions to when you are speaking with someone to ask him, okay, and how do you feel about that? So when you read that in a book, you know this is a book for men because
Hmm.
a woman will know and she will do that intuitively. She will ask that question. It will be the first thing that will pop in her mind, right?
Hmm.
So for me, I think that I spent many years of my life living in a limbo, living in something like a dream. I can't remember exactly what I was doing or how I was feeling in that period. I mean, I remember the facts. I remember going to school, going to the university, meeting friends, partying, etc. But I can't quite tell how I was feeling through this whole process. And I started being able to wake up and feel and remember better when I started learning more about how to process my own emotions. And it took therapy. It took therapy for me.
Hmm.
And what therapy did was I had someone, and I had a lady therapist, and I had someone to teach me emotions. So it's like you told, I needed someone to teach me things that I didn't know before. And it took also a lot of practice to sit down by myself, experience emotions. And, there are a lot of things that we don't like to experience. I mean, when I'm stressed, I don't like it, and I prefer to run away from that. And this is why we have so many addictions. So many
Mm-hmm.
people with addictions,
Right.
because they are running away from something,
Right.
and they can replace it fast. So we have addictions, or we're trying to supplement it with something. So we have a lot of people who are becoming, workaholics, or they're trying to compensate with something in order to not feel certain emotions. And I was that person. So in my case, this showed up as someone who was busy all the time. So I was busy all the time with work, and when I had time off, I was busy with hobbies and busy with friends, and I was always doing something.
Yeah. You were
And
getting it done.
I was getting it done. I was being places. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And at some point, I had to stop and see, okay, how is it for me if I just sit still? What will happen? And I discovered that it was not easy, and it was not pleasurable at all. And a lot of different things came up for me at that point. So I discovered why I will be all over the place all the time, because
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sit with myself and be still and be happy and be content. And this way, I also learned how to notice and experience emotions, either good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not an easy process, but then again, I learned also to process good emotions or happy emotions in a more good way. So now when I'm happy, I'm happier, and when I'm
Yeah.
sad, I'm sadder. But at least I'm not in that limbo.
Right. Yeah. So when you started to, I always love the answer to this question. When you started to learn how to feel your emotions again, when you started to feel them, how long can you quantify about how long those emotions would last when you learned what you were feeling versus previously?
Mm.
I know it's a deep question.
Yeah, no. The other day, something happened with a friend, and it really bugged me, and I couldn't sleep at night. So the next morning, I woke up and I thought, what is really going on here? Because it, if I think it through logically, it doesn't make sense. Everything is fine. So what is that I'm afraid of? So once I was able to vocalize that I was afraid, at that point of not being accepted, or what other people will say about me, or what will happen with my life if this catastrophe, big catastrophe that I was imagining will happen.
Mhm.
So once I vocalized my fears, then the emotion was off.
Yeah.
So it had to do with understanding the reason for the emotion.
Hmm.
So I don't have a definite answer about how much time it
Right.
takes, because it
Right.
takes as long as it will take
Yeah.
for me to realize what is going on there. And over the years, it takes less and less. So
The more you practice
the more you
allowing
practice.
your emotions to come up, and sometimes you have to understand where they're coming from. Sometimes you don't have to understand it. You just have to let them move through the body, which you had a great answer. It takes as long as it takes. Sometimes it's going to take 90 seconds. Sometimes it's going to take a couple of days. It's going to take what it takes. So that was a perfect answer. Um, what when you started to, so you talked a little bit about the uncomfortableness of learning to feel your emotions. What do you think was the foundation of why that was? Do you think it was because men aren't supposed to have emotions, and so learning to feel these emotions was in a way of betraying a part of you that had not felt emotions for so long or acknowledge the emotions. You felt emotions, but you didn't really acknowledge them or address them. But do you feel like that it was almost like betraying a part of you that had been a part of you for so long?
Mm. Nowadays I'm having lots of discussions with men and men who are seeking support. So I've seen certain patterns on that in my men's groups and with friends and clients. So there is some kind of ego in men that doesn't allow them two things. First, to not seem enough. They always need to seem enough to other people.
Hmm.
So they're afraid to lose face
Yeah.
if they make a mistake. And then there's the other thing that they don't give themselves the permission to ask for support.
Hmm.
So you have a person who's afraid of losing face and who's afraid of asking for support.
Yeah.
And this is a recipe for failure and a recipe for depression, actually, because you don't have the tools you need and you don't give yourself the permission to be human. Actually, you are not compassionate towards yourself at all. And you are not accepting any help, even when you are given some
Right.
help.
Right.
So a lot of men that are showing up in the men's groups that I'm running, for example, they are not ready to get support, and you can see there's a lot of friction when you tap into something that they are afraid of.
Hmm.
I was speaking with a guy, and he was very open about having an alcohol addiction and drinking a lot. And so I just asked him casually, "Okay, have you ever considered men's groups for AAs?" And he was like, "Okay, is it something that you are doing?" Because no, 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 and he just dropped off and he left, and he didn't want to hear anything that
Right.
was close to taking away his only self-medication, actually,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
somehow he was self-medicating in that way.
And I think that can be true for men and women because I have found the same thing that when it comes to um for women, it is like shopping or getting your hair done, getting your nails done. It's the vanity part of it is what is very hard for women to let go of. Um, wow, that's so interesting.
Mm.
Um, so what are some indicators? Because again, unless you're aware of maybe your own emotional holdbacks as a partner, as a female, or emotionally, unless you are emotionally in tune with yourself. So what I'm trying to say, unless you're emotionally in tune with yourself, you might not notice that your partner is struggling emotionally. What are some things that partners can look for in their male partner that may say, hey, you know what? Maybe they're having trouble processing some of their emotions. Maybe they're stressed all the time or hiding things or whatever. So what, and it may be the same for men and women. I'm not sure, which is why I'm asking. For men who are going through these emotional things, what are some of the things that might be so silent but so loud at the same time?
Mm. Even when you have a little animal, you can still say when it's sick, right?
Hmm.
Even though they don't speak. So I wouldn't expect from a man to really open up and speak up because it's not something we are doing. And I don't think it's quite right to push him to do that if he
Yeah.
doesn't feel like. But if you really take care of your partner, and I mean, if you notice how he's doing, you can tell even from the body language that someone is feeling stressed, is feeling uncomfortable, that he's having a tough time.
Hmm.
So I think that the first is to recognize what is going on there, that something doesn't feel right.
Right. So really tap into the energy that you're feeling around you can be a huge indication as to what's going on with your partner.
Exactly, exactly. So something is off, and you want to be aware of your partner, and we want also men to be aware of their partners as well.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is mutual. Uh, but the first way to really understand what is happening is to just notice the energy of the body language, the habits, how they are changing. And I think that the next logical space is to give some room, some space
Hmm.
for whatever is going on to unfold.
Yeah.
So maybe, if someone is listening to us, maybe she doesn't want to ask her husband or her spouse, etc., to vocalize this, but give him some space to speak about
Hmm.
what's going on right now. And maybe he
Right.
can't speak emotions, but by just speaking and discussing and asking about certain situations, he will end up to open up. And by giving him enough attention and space, maybe this is what he needed in the first place, some compassion and some
Yeah.
soothing, and that's enough. We don't need everyone to be super aware of their emotional insides. We don't need everyone to go to therapy. We
Right.
just need to give some space to people so they can express and decompress and vent off.
Mhm. And I think that says a lot because in looking back, I can see where, and I told my husband this one time. I said I can totally see why some women kind of nag or keep asking because like if I'm not aware of things that I need, I'm not going to be aware of things that my spouse needs. And I can always tell with my husband like when he needs either physical space, mental space, emotional space, and space being, "Hey, are you okay?" And then I shut up so that he can answer. And sometimes he says, okay, and I stay quiet, and then he starts talking.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
but I think but that's something that we have fostered that's taken, I mean, we'll be married for 30 years this year, so it's taken a lot of time for us to be able to foster that with each other. Um, but I can see how some women are so eager to fix that they're constantly asking questions. They're constantly asking, are you okay? They're constantly asking, do you need to talk about anything? What are you thinking about? And my husband will often say, I'm not thinking about anything. And I'm like, you can do that? You can just not think about anything? But I can see how if I kept asking, well, what do you mean you don't know what you're thinking about? Or you're not thinking that can be a wall builder and it can cause our spouse to cower back and not want to talk because we can be too interested, and sometimes we need to be interested but we need to be silent about it. does
Hmm.
that does that sound almost accurate?
It's brilliant. I love what you do with your husband, that you are giving him some silence actually, so he can get a hold of his own voice, because he
Hmm.
needs some more time apparently to do that. As you were speaking, I was thinking on how male or female friendships run, and you have 2 years, and they are speaking a lot about everything that happened through their days, I'm in Greece, so in Greece you can have girls drinking a coffee for 5 or 6 hours and sharing all their news, and this can happen every second day. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it's totally okay with them. But then if you go to men, they socialize differently and they do activities.
Yeah.
So maybe they are going fishing together, maybe they're having a common hobby. So they are doing something. They're not just there talking. And of course, I'm talking with my friends when I'm with them. But for me, it's boring to just
Yeah.
talk and
Yeah.
do nothing because the way I see it, we distress through the activities actually, through
Okay.
doing something.
Okay.
So I need a common workout to distress. I didn't care that much to share my news and all those funny things happen that you are with someone and you are missing some key details of their lives
Mm-hmm.
because they are not that important at that point to you. You don't need to know every small nuances of their lives in order to be close friends because
Right.
you bond as men bond through common activities.
Okay.
And sometimes you can have men whose personalities are totally apart and they are
Okay.
still good friends and they will still support each other in a time of need. And I don't think that this is so common for women.
Yeah. No, we don't. Yeah, we don't have to be. In fact, I would rather not be. It's harder, I think, for women to have emotional or deep conversations when there's an activity going on.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we're the complete opposite. I think we need to have more of a the only thing that comes to mind is coven. We need to have more of a circle, or it's more of a come together um to commiserate and to talk. Yeah, we don't need to be doing things. I mean, I guess there were knitting circles at one point. That's that's still something that's kind of calming, and it's not really an activity. But yeah, that's so interesting. Like I never knew that. So I love that I'm learning something new. That's why I love this podcast, is I learn something new with every episode.
Mm.
So it's really, really kind of cool. You have so how do you encourage or bring your clients to a point where they're comfortable with sharing things that maybe they weren't so comfortable with before?
Mm. It takes a lot of time for men to really open up about things that are happening. So you might, and it happens a lot. You might be meeting someone for many months, and he won't give you key details of what is happening in their lives. So it takes a leap of faith, actually, from
Mm-hmm.
my side and from their sides as well, and a lot of trust. And this is a big part of making actually a relationship. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, but you need to have trust there. uh, as men, we are used to parental figures or mentors telling us what we should do. And this is something that doesn't work that much when you are speaking to adults, because they are having their own opinions, they're having strong opinions. So in order to really have someone change how he's thinking about his life, you need to build a lot of trust first with him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a common relationship. So I learn also to open up and give details of my life so people can get to know me, can get to empathize with me, and then they are ready to listen to what I'm telling them.
Mm-hmm.
What I learn most of the time is that they first have to see me as some kind of positive figure in their lives
Yeah.
before they really listen to what I have to tell. So it's not coming from a place of authority,
Right.
but it's coming from a place of trust and from a place of connection that takes a lot of fostering to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that you give them the space to grow in trust. Um, I don't think that men are given that space often enough. I think they, a lot of times, especially in positions of authority, of managerial positions, or, CEO or CFO, those kind of positions, it's almost like they are in those positions and they are automatically supposed to trust those around them. But it's almost like it's a forced trust, because do they really they really trust them? Um, and a lot, it's not like, and I might be generalizing, but I don't think a lot of men have a lot of close friends like women do. Like women can have, 6 or 7 close friends, where a man might have, 2 to 4, if that. If I look at all the men in my life, not very many of them have more than a few friends. It's kind of mind-boggling. But that's probably comes from a place of that trust not being there. That I think men need to have a higher level, a different level of trust than women do in other women.
Mm. We have also the bad habit of not following up with our friends
Yeah,
once we're apart.
yeah,
So this is something that is bugging me a lot as well, because I have lots of good friends that were not in the same city anymore and were not following up as regularly as it will be enough to keep the relationship thriving.
right. Yeah, it's funny. I recently deactivated my Facebook page. And it's been about a month now, and I'm doing fine with it. And I did it before, and the one thing that really kind of threw me for a loop before was the amount of people who reached out to see how I was doing, and it wasn't very
Mm,
many. The first time when I took a month off, it was maybe 1 or 2 people reached out to say, "Oh, hey, I noticed, I thought about you today because I haven't seen you come across my page recently." And I've done the same thing. I deactivated my Facebook this time. Last time I just took the app off my phone, but this time I totally deactivated it. And again, it's like the number of people who have reached out that I would see on Facebook. They'd post something I like I mean, that's how people will stay in touch now, is through social media and posting like, "Oh, hey, I went to the doctor today and this is what happened." And that's their way of being in contact, of staying in contact. And so as soon as you take that away, you have to actually work at keeping those relationships going.
mm.
And it's
And it was not a good way to keep in contact in the first place, right?
right, no,
No, no.
no, because really you weren't keeping in contact. You were just, you're it's a form of stalking. Right? Because if you don't hear from them, you instantly go to their page and you're just like, "Oh, hey, this is what they're up to." Right?
Yeah,
You get all caught up on what they're doing based off of what
yeah.
they're posted, but you're only
A-
seeing what they want you to see.
Yeah, and you get the chance to feel that you know things, and you get the chance to maybe gossip a bit what is
Yeah.
going on in their lives and compare yourself to them,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
still go back feeling empty.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a very nice journey this time, the not being on it. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the 5 simple ways to feel happier and more fulfilled that you offer, because that is like that is my heart. Um, I was just telling my nephew that I think that for me, how I see purpose for human beings in this lifetime that I'm in is that maybe it is our purpose to find happiness within the life that we're already living and not go chasing after something else that we think is going to make us happy. So, how do you bring that happiness and fulfillment into your, how do you present that to your clients, and how can you be more happy and more fulfilled?
It's like the chicken and the egg example. We're doing things in order to be happy, or are we doing things because we are happy? So what is coming first? And I know that you can live in a hut and be very happy with your life, and you can live in a castle and be super miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So, without going into cliches about money, etc., for me, the reason we are doing most of the things in our lives is to somehow achieve happiness for ourselves and for others. So, this is why we're going to work. This is why we're having families. This is why we're building houses. This is why we're going to vacations, right? To feel better and to feel happier. So that is super important to keep it in mind when we are taking certain decisions. So is this decision going to make me happier now or some months down ahead? Is this a big goal that I'm striving for? Is this a big goal that leads me to being happier, or this is a big goal that leads me to being more miserable? And a lot of the people I'm speaking to, they chase after their goals and they tend to be more and more miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, it's totally understandable. We don't get to understand that at the end of the path we're following, there's more of what we were doing already. So if you are studying and working, the the price that you will get in the end of that path, it will be more of that same learning and work. So if
Mm-hmm.
you are building a career on something that you don't like, in the end you will get more of that career because
Right.
we thought that you liked it in the first place, right?
Right.
So this comes as a first layer of why we're doing things. And it's something that it's good to realize and accept and have as a value that, okay, we're striving to be happier. And for men especially, men tend to care after others, and they are not always the bread bringers, but they tend to care for
Yeah.
their families, and
Right.
they tend to need to have some kind of legacy. And again, we should realize that even this thing, it's to give us some sense of purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
purpose makes us happy. So it's good to strive if this gives you purpose and makes you happy. But I'm taking it
Right.
too far away. Back to what I'm offering. I've gathered 5 mini interventions someone can try and have immediate positive results in how he's feeling in his life. So
Mm-hmm.
I've put them in a small guide. I'm having them on my website. It's free. People can get it. And the thinking behind that is that if someone is not feeling well right now, what's the go-to? What should he do? I mean, of course, mindfulness and going to vacations and therapy and speaking your emotions, all of these are good, but they will take some time to
Mm-hmm.
build. So, but what
Right.
can I do right now? What's my first aid kit? So I've gathered 5 mini interventions someone can try that really, really will pay up immediately. And some of them we have discussed already is, for example, build some relationships, speak to some friends, catch up with old friends.
Yeah.
This will make you feel better immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because when you do that, that weekend that I called my friend in Netherlands and we spoke for 2 hours, I was like, whoa, was I speaking for 2 hours straight? Of course I did.
Yeah,
And I felt superb after that. But
that's awesome.
I'm not making a habit of that, so I still have something to work on.
You're human.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
That's part of the human experience is learning and reflecting and becoming aware.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love that you're helping men to become more aware of what's going on with them, because then they can pass that on to their sons and daughters. And that's how we break generational curses.
I
That's
love
how
that.
that
I
that's
love
how
that.
we teach our children to process their emotions so that they don't get stuck in the same patterns that we were in.
Mm. Most of the time I'm thinking that, okay, I don't have any big life lessons to give to my kids one day. So I don't know how the world will come up to be in 20 or 30 or 40 years. So I don't have anything big to give them. But if they learn to process their own emotions,
Mhm.
then they will be ready for that. They will
Yeah.
have the
I think this is
confidence.
the big life lesson you're teaching them. This is the legacy that you're leaving them. Because by the time you have grandchildren, can you imagine your children being able to just naturally show your grandchildren how to process emotions? Just naturally. I think
Yeah.
that's huge. You should be incredibly proud of yourself for that. That's so huge. Like, yeah, yeah. Take that as your legacy, man.
Mm.
Absolutely. So, as we bring this conversation to a close, is there anything that you want the listeners to know or to hear that we did not touch on?
Mm. I think that the best way that a woman can help her husband, her spouse, her boyfriend is to really give him the permission, like you said, to be human
Hmm.
and support him by giving him the space to fail and be okay with that. Because
Yeah,
we are so afraid of failing, of not being good enough. And we need someone to tell us that, okay, it's not the end of the world. We can try
right.
again. And I still love you like you are. So
Yeah.
this is something big that we need to hear. And my girlfriend always tells me that she loves me, and it's always a bit uncomfortable. But I tend to learn also how to accept that. So we need some practice.
Yes. Yeah, I've been there. And one thing, and I don't know if this is helpful for the listeners to hear, but when your partner says that you love them, say, I know, because you feel that love from them, right? You do. And so in that moment they love you. That will expand your receiving capabilities. The more you say, I know you love me, the more you can receive it.
Mm,
So give that a shot, listeners. Give that a shot and see if that helps you to be more comfortable with accepting, because we are all worthy of the love that we're given, no matter where it's coming from. If it is true, compassionate, kind love, we're all worthy of getting it. Where can people find you? Your website, your socials, where can they find you?
they can find me on my website. It's mindfullife.coach, and they have all my resources there, the guide we discussed, the information about the work I'm doing with men, the men's groups, everything. And I have an Instagram. I'm not very active on that, but I still upload some of the things like these podcasts there. So people who are there, they can have some positive reinforcement about going after their goals and being happy.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tenya. It was a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, Transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.